Welcome to the Real World History Channel. At the dawn of the 20th century, the world believed it was entering its greatest era. Europe stood at the center of global power. Its cities glowed with electric lights, factories roared with machines, and empires stretched across continents. Trains connected capitals. Telegraph wires carried messages faster than ever before. Science promised progress. Industry promised wealth. Many believed war, at least between major European powers, had become impossible. They were wrong. This is the real story of how the world walked calmly, confidently, and blindly toward the bloodiest conflict it had ever known, a world built on empires. By 1900, Europe ruled the planet. The British Empire was the largest empire in human history. Its territories covered nearly 1/4 of the Earth's land surface. From India to Africa, from Australia to the Caribbean, Britain controlled trade routes, raw materials, and seas. France, though humiliated by its defeat in the Franco-Prussian War of 1870, rebuilt its pride through colonies in Africa and Southeast Asia. Germany, newly unified in 1871, was rising at an astonishing speed. Its factories, railways, and military power expanded faster than any other European nation. Austria-Hungary was an aging empire, a patchwork of ethnicities held together by tradition and fear. Russia, vast and resource-rich, remained socially backward but militarily enormous, and in the southeast. The Ottoman Empire, once feared and respected, was slowly collapsing, earning the nickname the sick man of Europe. Each empire wanted more land, more resources, more power, but the world was running out of space. The dangerous idea of nationalism, one of the most powerful forces shaping this era, was nationalism. Nationalism taught people to believe their nation was superior, sacred, and worth dying for. It unified countries, but it also divided them. In places like Germany and Italy, nationalism had helped create new nations, but inside empires like Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, nationalism became explosive. Serbs wanted Serbia, Czechs wanted independence, Arabs wanted freedom from Ottoman rule. Each group dreamed of its own flag, its own army, its own destiny. The Balkans, especially, became a pressure cooker. This region of southeastern Europe was filled with ethnic rivalries, historical grudges, and political assassinations. It was so unstable that diplomats began calling it the powder keg of Europe. All it needed was a spark, industrial power, and the arms race. The Industrial Revolution transformed warfare. Factories could now produce weapons in massive quantities. Steel ships replaced wooden fleets. Rifles fired faster and farther. Artillery became deadlier, and Europe began to prepare not for peace, but for war. Germany expanded its army and built a powerful navy to challenge Britain's dominance at sea. Britain responded by launching the Dreadnought, the most advanced battleship ever built. Soon, every major power was competing. Bigger armies, faster mobilization plans, stronger weapons, military spending skyrocketed. Generals drew up war plans that assumed conflict was inevitable. The most famous of these was Germany's Schlieffen Plan, which planned a lightning-fast invasion of France through Belgium. Once these plans were set in motion, stopping them would become nearly impossible. Alliances, a chain reaction waiting to happen. To protect themselves, nations formed alliances. What began as defensive agreements slowly turned into rigid military blocs. On one side stood Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, known as the Triple Alliance. On the other side were France, Russia, and Britain, forming the Triple Entente. These alliances were meant to prevent war. Instead, they guaranteed that if war began, it would spread rapidly. A conflict between two nations would drag in many others, like dominoes falling across a continent. The illusion of civilization. Despite rising tensions, life in Europe appeared peaceful. Cafes in Paris were full, opera houses in Vienna sparkled, universities in Berlin thrived. Many intellectuals believed humanity had evolved beyond large-scale war. They argued that modern economies were too interconnected for conflict to make sense. Even soldiers expected any future war to be short and glorious. No war will last more than a few months, many claimed. They imagined marching off to battle and returning home as heroes by Christmas. They had no idea what modern war truly meant. Colonial rivalries and global tension. Europe's empires clashed not only in Europe but across the world. Germany challenged French control in Morocco. Britain and Russia competed for influence in Central Asia. Naval confrontations occurred from Africa to the Pacific. These colonial disputes fueled suspicion and resentment. Every crisis was resolved at the last moment, but each one left scars. Diplomacy became a game of threats and ultimatums. Trust disappeared. Leaders playing with fire. Europe's leaders believed they could control events. Kings, emperors, and politicians saw war as a tool, something to be used if necessary, then contained. Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany craved respect and recognition. Russian leaders feared revolution if they appeared weak. Austrian officials wanted to crush Slavic nationalism. Each decision was driven by pride, fear, and ambition. No one truly planned a world war, but everyone prepared for one. The calm before the storm. By 1914, Europe stood balanced on a knife's edge. Armies were ready, alliances were locked, nationalist movements were growing. All it would take was one event, one bullet, to shatter the illusion of peace. And that moment was approaching. In a city called Sarajevo, a young man with a pistol was about to change history forever.